Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the podcast. This is Cosmic Connection, starring lovely Swanee and your beloved Chosen. And of course, we have a special guest, Mr. Maximus, also known as Mooski, here with us. On this podcast, we just kind of cover the basics, kind of introduce myself. Um, I'm a light worker, chosen being of the 144,000. Me and Swanee are known as Holy Watchers. We will cover that in later shows. But today we just want to cover the basics and kind of get you familiar with who you are. So, to begin, who you are in your truest self, which is your inner core self, known as your mighty I Am Presence and Holy Christ self, which is the true you, the little spark of divinity within you. You are a fragment of the Creator of all, experiencing itself within itself to learn about itself within itself. Yeah. In the process of this, you choose many families, you choose many spouses, you choose many experiences. Again, when I say these things, I'm not expecting all of you to know exactly what I'm talking about, but that comes in time. So with that being said, being a light worker in this day and age is very beneficial. It's very enlightening. It's very rewarding. Being a light worker is kind of aligning with your true purpose. And if you're not familiar with what a light worker is someone that has incarnated on this planet, and their whole mission in life, usually it comes later in life, is to basically assist in bringing light to themselves, which therefore brings light to the people around them, and therefore that spreads like a virus or a wildfire and spreads light to the whole world. There's many different ways you could do this. This first podcast is going to be just keeping it simple. So the easiest way to be a light worker is, the first thing is to take care of yourself. Your diet, what you think, what you eat, what you choose to think about, who you choose to associate with, and how you choose to associate with those people. Just the basics. My own personal experience, which I'll share a little bit about. It's pretty in depth, but the first podcast, we will keep it real simple. Grew up a normal child, went through some experiences, which I'm still remembering and learning about to this day. And growing up was very interesting, to keep it light. And when I got older, I just found myself in the presence of angels. Many experiences, which I'm sure Swanee, dearly beloved Swanee, could share her experiences too later on in other podcasts. But we'll start off with a story. We'll tell a story. I was about the age of, let's say, 19 years old. The group of individuals I was associated with, well, to put it where you can understand it, we would call them gangsters, drug dealers, hippies, rockheads, not rockheads as in drugs, but rockheads, rock and roll people. Pretty rough around the edges. And in one night in particular, we all went out. There was a fight at the bar room, and then as the night unfolded, it was about, say, 2:30 in the morning. The club closed at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we all found ourselves well, me personally, I found myself, excuse me, I found myself in a group of individuals, which I later found out. I was friends with all these people, but them outside of me were not all friends. So that was a very unique position to be in at the age of 19. And to make a long story short, a guy by the name of Wayne Winters, which is, he's in heaven now, rest his soul, and another guy named Travis, I can't remember his name, he was a Native American guy. I was kind of knew of Wayne Winters. He was a good friend of my friend, Chris, at the time. And I wasn't aware at the time that Travis wasn't too friendly and they wasn't too fond of each other. So here I am, I find myself in between two people. One at the time was who I got my, we'll keep it simple, who I got my substances from, because back in that day I was selling substances, not to make money, just call it the guy in the group that had it, and that way my friends didn't have to go out and get it, they just come to me, kind of make it easy for everybody. This was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. The rave scene, dance music was pretty hot back then. So here I am, we're outside of a hotel next to a gas station in Houma, Louisiana, pretty far south, in the swamps, if you ask me, Cajun country. Yeehaw! Anyway, that wasn't Cajun, but it sounded fucking cool, didn't it? Alright. So here I am with these groups of people, and long story short, I have Wayne Winters, which seen me talking to Travis, which at the time I didn't know Travis and him were having beef or anything. Come to find out it was gang beef territory, and Travis supposedly did something to him, and he did something to his mom, which I didn't have nothing to do with. But cut to the chase, I found myself being confronted by Wayne. And at the age of 19, around the age of 19, I was very lighthearted. I was a star seed. I was chosen. I was anointed. Wasn't aware of it at the time. I had a glow to me, which now I realize because I'm an earth angel. We'll cover that in later shows. And I find myself getting approached by Wayne, and he's asking me all these questions about, hey, aren't you so and so, and blah 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 blah. And I had a buzz. I was smoking reefer that night. I was just laughing, carrying along. I really didn't find no much of a threat. And before you know it, I find myself looking at the sky, which means that Wayne sucker punched me in the jaw, and I was knocked out. Within a matter of smidgets of seconds, the people I was with, one named Vic Ferret, bless his soul, he came upon my body like a fucking bear and told these motherfuckers, you come this way again, I'm gonna fuck all you up. I was very loved, very respected, very appreciated by Vic and other people. They knew I was a very kind, loving guy. I really didn't mess with nobody. I was always the bright guy, the happy guy. Didn't really cause trouble. So I had a whole group of people. Vic Ferret, one of them in particular, who was very protective of me. And learning now, he's seen my light. He knew I was an angel. A lot of people did when I was younger. I wasn't aware of it at the time, but it was part of my journey. And he got over me like a big bear, and he told these people, he said, look, if you come this way, he says, I'm gonna fuck all you up. So I stood up. Vic stood by me. Other people stood by me. Certain people were booing and hooing or whatever. It really wasn't important. And the people I was with, to not cause any drama with their little important group, which you really kind of seen who my true friends were that night. So long story short, I wind up and ended up walking I ended up walking to uh, say that it was a red light behind us. So it was like right on the corner of a busy intersection. It was Martin Luther King Drive, crossed with Hollywood Boulevard in Houma, Louisiana, by a hotel, which is now the Ramada Inn. So, and at the time, I lived on the east side of town, and we were on the west side. So, if I were to walk, it would have probably have been a 7, 8 mile walk one way. Now, mind you, I could have done this, no problem. Um, I was fresh out the military, very in shape. I had a little beer buzz, but I was okay. Smoked a little weed. I was all right. I was young, which I'm all right now, but I'm just saying as a point of reference. So, um, here I am. I'm walking down the street. Not really worried about anyone bothering me or causing any harm or anything of that sort. Uh, so I start walking down Hollywood Road, and I'm walking, and I don't know. I guess now I kind of had a feeling maybe something would have happened, but I really wasn't. I just had this feeling with all these anointings and blessings upon my life. I've had this feeling everything, no matter what, was just gonna be okay. What I'm learning now is the presence of the Holy Spirit, which again we'll cover in later shows. We're just breaking some ground, telling you some stories of some angelic intervention. Um, so I am walking down Hollywood Road, and out of nowhere, this car pulls up. Like, this car pulls up, and this dude rolls down the window, and he's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "You need a ride?" And I looked up to myself. I'm like, "Yeah, man, I need a ride." He said, "Where you going?" He said, "Just get in, man. I'm gonna take you anywhere you gotta go." And when this guy approached me, he made me feel. He was young. He made me feel like everything was all right. I asked him his name. He had a full name, a story, everything. There was nothing that would have brought any suspicion of anything of any nature, good or bad, to my consciousness. So I get in the car. I don't remember the conversation exactly. We just start talking. He was telling me his name, and he had a whole story, and I just felt very comfortable with this guy, right? And we got to where I lived at, and he dropped me off, and I get out the car, and where I lived at, they had a big iron gate, so I jumped the gate. I went inside. I remembered his name and everything, and he left, and I thanked him. I think I might have given him some money. He didn't want to accept it. He left, and I went to bed. So when I woke up the next morning, I get up the next morning, and I had a little dinker on my chin, because I got hit. It really wasn't bad. A little brush on my head, and so I called my friend Chris, and I'm like, "Hey, man," I'm like, "So, what's up?" He's like, "Man, you all right, bro?" And he kind of explained to me the politics involved. I wasn't holding it against him, because I didn't know at the time he was, he was in the mafia. But he didn't want to say it. He just had certain things he wouldn't do, certain things he would do, and I wasn't too privy of how the mafia worked back in the day. But he was mafia. I've been knowing him my whole life, so it made sense why I got invited to these parties. Made sense why I've always got these gifts, and a bunch of stories we'll cover in later shows. But let's just focus on this one right here. So we wind up talking, and he's like, "Man, where you went last night?" And like, "Man, I was walking down Hollywood Road. I was a walk home, and so and so picked me up. He said he knew who you were, and I wound up telling him the whole story about me and him talking, and the guy's name, and this and this and this." And he's like, "Joseph," he says, "I got something to tell you." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I'd never heard of this fucking dude." And he says, "Well, I'm not trying to say nothing bad." He says, "Well, let me call you back. I'll talk to you tomorrow, and we will, I'll tell you who this guy is, because he was mafia. Of course, he's gonna find out who the fuck he is." So I ended up speaking to him the next day, and he's like, "Look, bro," he's like, "I don't know who the fuck that dude was." He says, "But none of my people know who the fuck that is." And at the time, I wasn't even thinking divine intervention. Okay, it wasn't a thing. Like it wasn't like, oh, there's an angel and blah 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 or whatever. We just brushed it off. We just brushed it off. Um, so another story I could share. That was divine intervention. First story of divine intervention. Another story happened to me recently, and this is in the year of 2025. Around, say, March 11th, 2025, 311. And again, before I get into any further detail, this first show is just going to be covering a couple angelic stories, more than likely a couple, talking about the angels, just kind of get you warmed up to the fact of who you are, the angelic presence you have, how special you are, how divine you are, how loved you are, and so on and so on. Without getting too mushy, without getting too in depth, we just will cover two stories. So, second story is, it's 2025. It's many years later, let's say, over 20 years later, roughly over 20 years later, and they have these. I'm living at a place. It's not a bad place. It's pretty middle class, but it's predominantly young African American people, husbands, wives, and their kids. So it was one day way before this. I think it was last year. I chose to go outside and just pick the ball up. They'd play football on the playground, and we just started football, right? Now, before I get into any depth of what this story happened, at the time that this is going on, I've been doing light work since basically learning of truth, doing healing, working on myself, helping other people. Just to sum it up, since about 2005. Okay, so it's been a good over 15 years since then I started, right? And I've been hearing from many people about how dedicated I've been, and how, let's use the word, sincere I've been to the divine. So this one in particular was just a little reminder of that. So I've done touch base with. I started playing football with these group of kids, these young black kids. They love my energy. We have fun. I'm a kid at heart, so playing football with these little guys, it's cool. I enjoy it. It brings a smile to their face. I take them to the gym. I'm really being a positive influence, teaching them about the earth, about how important it is to ground, look at the sun. And if you don't know about walking barefoot or looking at the sun, go look that up. It's very good. It gives you life force, prana energy, which is God. And, well, we can go and cover that in detail in later shows. But let's get back to the story. So here I am playing football, which has been a couple months later, with a group of kids. And we're on the playground. And we're playing ball, right? And these group of kids all playing, and everybody's getting along, and things are going very well, and we're playing football, and then, like, out of nowhere, this little black kid walks up, and he comes to us, and he fits right in. And as soon as this kid's walking up, my consciousness, my sixth sense is saying Earth Angel. Earth Angel, Earth Angel. But he doesn't give the vibe. Like he's fitting, he's blending in very well. I guess he's using his Jedi mind tricks or whatever, right? So he winds up coming over there, and I'm like, "Hey man, what's your name?" And right as I'm thinking Earth Angel, he tells me his name, and it sounds like he says "sent here," like "sent here," SENT here, HERE, right? I'm like, dude, come on, really? What's your name, bro? So I'm over here playing, thinking his name is Sent here. I'm over here like, damn, is this dude's really name Sent here? He's like, no, man, my name is Sincere. Sincere. I'm thinking to myself, what kind of motherfucking person names their fucking kid Sincere? You know, like, really? So I blow it off. I'm not trying to go into no crazy deep thoughts or conversations with myself about who are here and why they're here. So the guy comes to play football. We just throwing the football. He's pretty good too, man. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He can do everything. And we wound up playing football for a couple hours, right? And this is where it gets interesting. It's just me and him on. It's just me and him on the playground. And the sun's done went down. It's dusk. And he's like, "Hey, man," he says, "I heard you take those kids to the gym." And I'm thinking to myself, where the hell you heard this from? You were here. You wasn't even here before, and I didn't hear no one talking about it. He's like, "Man, why don't you show me where that gym's at?" I'm like, "All right." So I take him to the gym, and he goes in there, he messes around, and says, "Man, maybe tomorrow, man. Maybe tomorrow we can go work out or something." I'm like, "Yeah, maybe so." He's a good little kid. No problem helping him out working out. I'm prior military, so it's not really a problem helping the young kid out. So, long story short, he winds up going his separate way, and he's like, "Hey, man," he said, "where you live at?" I says, "I live over here in building 6. And I'm like, "Where you live at?" And he didn't even say a building. He says, "Oh, I just live back there somewhere. Live back there somewhere." No big deal. I go home, everything's, like it is. Thinking about someone I'm connected to, very special. We're not going into detail about that. That might be revealed later, but not important right now, though she's important to me. So we just went our separate ways, and he came in here on the football field that day, and I was kind of thinking about that, and I just came home, I rested and did my thing, and just went on life as usual. Did researching, did some light work, some meditations, the usual thing an Earth Angel would do, which we'll cover in later shows. And I get up the next day, and just like the other story I just told, I ended up on the playground again, and the people that were all playing football that day didn't remember this kid, almost like he wasn't there. No one knew of him. They didn't see him on a school bus. No nothing. So I got to thinking about that in meditation. I tuned in, and my answer came to me that night. I had a tarot reading done, and my angels, guess what my angels told me? They says, "You have been so sincere with the divine. That's why all these blessings are taking place in your life." And I have blessings after blessings every day. Blessings in finances, gifts in finances, blessings in getting healthier and healthier every day, blessings in using my energy work, my star power, my anointings. I am so blessed beyond measure. And to kind of roughly mention again, a person I'm connected to is seeing this, feeling this more and more every day. And she's worth every bit of it. So if you're listening, you're worth every bit of it, dear. So that was Angelic Intervention number 2, and that was basically to give me the message, which had a synchronicity, which is two things matching up that had nothing to do with each other. His name was Sincere, and then I get a tarot reading done from a psychic, and they said that the angels and everybody want you to know how sincere you are. So that was 2 stories of Angelic Intervention. We will kind of cover it. We will kind of cover some basics, and then we go. This will be done with this podcast. This is the first presentation, kind of plant some seeds, get you familiar. Cosmic Connection, starring Swanee and Chosen as your host and co-host, which will rotate back and forth. And we have our VIP guest, Mr. Maximus Muski, which is a special little guy. So we go cover some basics with angels. Okay, so you have a group of angels, archangels, known as the horizontal, north, south, east, west angels, which with a element, with a color, and with a name. And then you have the vertical force plane archangels, which is up and down, with a name, a color, and a task, and an element. Or should I say an element that is more of an emotional element, and earth, but we will cover it. Okay, so we always start off in the east, and on the next podcast we're going to invoke this angelic grid of protection. I didn't want to do it to start off with the first one. I wanted to just give you some couple stories, kind of get your feet wet, kind of get you give you a couple angelic stories that happened to me in my life. And more angelic stories will come about to just tell you how divine intervention works. I will share my personal ones. Swanee might want to share some of her personal ones. I'll share personal ones of other people that don't want to come forth and say it. I'll be the mouth for them. So let's get back to it. Your horizontal plane angel starts off in the east. And in the east, the color is emerald green fire. The element is air. And the color is emerald green fire. The element is air. And the name is Raphael. Okay, healer of God. To the south, we have is the element of fire. The name is Michael, Michael, he who is as God. And he is of truth and justice of God. To the west, we have Gabriel, which I think means friend of God or something like that. Let me go ahead and look it up. Again, this is not edited. But Gabrielle, it's a female, and her color is white diamond fire, and the element is water. And Gabrielle means God is my strength. All right, and then to the north is the element of earth, and the color of the fire is ruby red, and the name is Uriel. That's north. The element is earth, the color is ruby red fire, and Uriel means God is my light, or fire of God. So horizontal, again, east, Raphael, healer of God, emerald green fire. Element air. South, element is fire. Blue, Michael, he who is as God. West, Gabriel, mother pearl white diamond fire, element water. God is my strength. North, Uriel, ruby red fire, fire of God, light of God, element earth, ruby red fire. So now we go to the vertical force angels, and to give you a loose little story, that I don't feel that the vertical force was always a presence. We'll cover in later shows. We're just kind of getting some basics laid down for you to lead to the next show. Every show is going to build upon one another, and we'll lead into the next one. So your vertical force plane angels is Sandalphon and Metatron. And Sandalphon was known as Elijah in the Bible. There's a story about how Elijah was brought up by a pillar of light. Well, to make a long story short, when Elijah was brought up by the pillar of light and God, it's in I forgot what book it's in, but it's in the Bible. God made Elijah into Sandalphon, which is the angel of music, prayer, and poetry. He is the angel of the below. His task is, like I said, music, prayer, and poetry. He is the archangel of newborn babies, and his task is the crystalline grid of Mother Earth. That is below. Above is Metatron. Metatron used to be known as Enoch in the Bible. Metatron's color, before I go there, Sandalphon's color is silver white. Metatron's color is golden white, white gold. And his task is Christ and Buddha consciousness grid from above. So you have a Christ and Buddha consciousness grid above. Below you have the crystalline grid of Mother Earth, vertical. And then you have the four elements: east, south, west, north. All together, they cover a six-dimensional field of protection. You have north, south, east, west, or should I say east, south, west, north, and then up and down. And all together, these angels work together. These angels cover a six-dimensional field of protection, which is really, you think about it, if you would want to be protected, you wouldn't want to be protected from north, south, east, west, above and below. So I think we had the horizontal to begin with, and as things progress, and our God, our Father, had chosen individuals that meet certain qualifications, he turns them into an archangel, covering more spectrums, more dimensions, to get his creation ascended out of this simulation. Yes, people, simulation. We're not going to go into depth about that. I thought I would take the cookie, dip it in the milk, or like a baby, a mama's a mother's baby dips her elbow in the water to test the water. We try to kind of get your feet wet. Archangel Metatron is known as the angel of divine presence, and he's a chancellor of heaven. Okay, so we covered the horizontal plane, the vertical plane, the elements, the names, who they were. We'll go into further detail about that in other shows. And we had 2 angelic stories for you. I want to thank you for tuning in. Again, this will be aired on Podbean, and has been aired on Podbean. I want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast. This is Chosen with co-host and host Swanee. Our special guest, Mr. Mooski, named Maximus, and you have tuned in to the Cosmic Connection. I want to thank you so much, and I hope you have a blessed life. Thank you for tuning in. Stay amazing, beautiful people. Stay amazing.